Hey y'all, this is Whitney, and welcome back to another episode of Spastic Chatter. Spastic Chatter is a platform meant to feature those in the Cerebral Palsy community, and I get together weekly with individuals with CP, like myself, to have an uncensored chat, if you will, about what it's like living with this type of disability. And for this week, I have Izzie, and I found her on I found her because the Rolex were doing some promo for their uh, Rolex Experience Live, and I thought she was really cool. And she's talk. She has a background in something that we don't that as a society is not it's not talked about very much, and that is that she's a sexual health and wellness advocate. So today we're gonna learn more about Izzie and um, talk a little bit about what that means being a sexual health and wellness advocate. So I'll let Izzie introduce herself.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for having me on, Whitney. So, as Whitney said, my name's Izzie. I have spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy. I work for a center for independent living, and I also pride myself on being a sexual health and wellness advocate for people with disabilities. So, my main focus is to educate people with disabilities and not people that are not disabled about the sexuality of people with disabilities.
Yes. So what what made you want? Well, you kind of already answered this, but if you want to go into detail, what made you want to start like being an advocate in that realm?
So I think there were many things throughout my life that kind of like sexuality just sprinkled in. Before we started recording, I shared with you that I have a background in higher ed. So during my graduate program, I worked for my university's Disability Resource Center. And so when you go to college, at least a public college, sex and sexuality is a very open topic. I don't know if you're very common. Like I know my university, we had something called Sex Week, where we would like literally there would be different seminars about different sexualities and just learn about sex. And it came to my realization during that time. I was like, okay, great, we're learning about all these other people, but where's the intersect of people with disabilities and sexuality? Where's the disabled sex?
So there was all these panels, but there wasn't one for disability.
No, there was your LGBTQ, which is a great thing. There was your people of color, your women of color, which were all great things, but there was never a conversation of disabled people and having sex. And I was just
That's
like,
very odd to me.
yeah. And so, and funny enough, I grew up in a very conservative home. So when you like, if you were to ask all my friends if they would have thought growing up that I would be the one talking about sex as an adult, they'd be like, "Is he? No." But
Yeah,
now here I am, and it's because I was like, if it was just so new to me. Everywhere there was, you learned about sexuality, but nobody talked about people with disabilities and
yeah,
them having sex. So I
yeah.
just sprinkled in it, and I was like, and that kind of just took the light bulb off, and my life has just led me in other ways
That's all.
to
That's
start talking about
um.
it.
That's very to me. That's very unusual on a college campus. But I have like my undergrad was in rehabilitation services. So like of course you know what that is. It's like the vocational side of helping people with disabilities.
Yep.
So so like one one class that we had to do was like the psychosocial aspects of having a disability, and granted my professor had a disability himself. um he 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 did a whole lecture on sexuality and disability. So that was a very open topic within within our program. But if you're I still can't get over that. If there's all these panels, like why wouldn't, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, we had the vagina monologues. I don't know if you know what that
Yeah,
is.
yeah, my college had that too.
Yep, and you just don't see, I came to realize you don't see anyone represented. You don't see people represented. You don't see it talked about. And so, like, I was kind of the pioneer to try and steer that conversation. I was trying to build a partnership between the Women's Resource Center and the Disability Center to do something about sex. Yeah. And we did, but it was more, once again, more health related. It wasn't like sex. So
yeah. Well, again, if those resources aren't, if it's not talked about, then like people with disabilities have no reference, or like they have no, like, they grow up just thinking like, oh, this is not possible, like, or where do I fit in, like, you know what I'm trying to say, like.
Yeah, and one thing I was seeing, and I have no science to back this up or anything like that, but throughout my work, and I continue to see it, I keep seeing a large intersection between disability and those who identify as trans or non-binary. So what resources do they have? What does that look like?
Yeah, exactly. And I keep thinking, as we're talking, I keep thinking about, like, my dating experience. The very first, like, it is very common for the very first question a person has for somebody that they're potentially gonna date is, can you have sex? And like, of course, like, but the society puts that like that stigma that disability, there's no, like, we there's no sex, like, we're not sexual, like, we're asexual.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of why I wasn't seeing any representation, because of course we wouldn't. You talked about sexting because we weren't seen as sexual to begin with.
Yeah. And I from looking at your Instagram, and like, I don't know where I've seen this. I think it might have been the panel that I looked at. You are so you do you teach the sexual, the sexuality classes at your independent living center, or?
Yes. So I am certified in a particular curriculum called the Elevatus training, which is a training specifically, it's a sexuality training specifically tied for people with developmental disabilities. So I teach, there's a whole group of us, but I'm one of the facilitators for our sexuality trainings at the center.
So like I was a part of, like, because I think, well, the Center for Independent Living that I worked at in Austin also had that class. So like I was a part of that. I was a moderator, observer, whatever you want to call it, for that class. And I believe that it is totally necessary to have that class, because prior to coming to the Independent Living Center, the consumers had no education on what sexuality entails. So like they were pretty much like written off, like, oh, they just have a disability, like they don't need to learn about this stuff. But then they would be getting themselves in situations that they didn't know anything about, and they didn't know how to get out of. So I believe that those classes are really important.
And sexuality is so much more than sex. It's healthy relationship. It's loving yourself. So much more than that. And I think people often forget that. I say the word sexuality and they're like, oh, we're going to talk about penis and vagina and all that. And it's so much more than that. It's how to set safe boundaries, how to know what you want and not want, how to communicate, how to move from friend to partner. You know, because
Yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
people don't know those things. Those aren't skills that we learn. Those are things we just kind of pick up along the way.
Yeah, exactly. And for like you said that people in your like your hometown were like they would like they wouldn't expect you to be talking about sex.
No.
Well, the same goes for me. Like I'm very modest. Like I don't talk about this kind of thing. So like for people watching this, they're probably like, whoa, what is Whitney doing? But I said
Yeah.
this is a topic that needs to be that needs
Yeah.
to be talked about.
Well, I really like it because I also sell pure romance. I know. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
So yeah. So I just kind of like threw myself in the full thing because I was like, because I also love. I'm just gonna put a plug out there. I also love pure romance because it makes that kind of shopping for toys and things like that accessible. I mean,
Yeah.
when you have a PA or somebody who drives you, you don't want to be like, hey, want to drive me and my partner to Lover's Lane?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
maybe you can't get there, or maybe you don't know what to buy. So like, I really jumped in because I love the idea of how pure romance makes it accessible to people,
Yeah.
makes it able to conversate. Your consultants are willing to educate you. So it's all around me.
That's awesome. Do you have a lot of customers with disabilities there?
Yeah, so I can't name a name, but my first
Yeah.
party that I threw was during quarantine. It was a virtual party, and the hostess had a stepsister with cerebral palsy, and she didn't know that I had cerebral palsy because you can only see my shoulders up, and I don't go and say, "Hey, I'm disabled."
Yeah, like, hey,
I'm who I am. And so she messaged me after the party, and she goes, "I don't know if you're gonna be able to help me, but I have cerebral palsy. I need to know what to buy for me and my disability. Do you know what that is?"
Yeah.
And I was like, surprise! I have cerebral palsy too. And she started to cry because she's never met anyone like her before.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, that was just a sign to me, like, I'm in the right place at the right time. So, I end up getting a lot of customers with disabilities because they want to know what to get and they want that support, which they don't often get.
Yeah, that's very cool. So I kind of want to talk about, because I already know, because I looked at your Instagram. So your partner, boyfriend, also has a disability. What has your dating experience been like?
So, I haven't dated at all. So, I met my partner, David, when I was a freshman in high school. He was the first person with CP that I've met who, how can I say this? Matched me on a cognitive level.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, we've been together since I was 16, and I'm 27 now.
So you don't really have that dating experience, like that creepy,
No.
dating. No, you're not missing. You didn't miss anything. You're lucky.
Yeah, and before we started dating, I wanted, and I'm sure you've seen my posts, because I'm open about this, I wanted nothing to do with him, because I didn't know anyone before him. So I was like, no, I'm good, go away. But then I just realized how nice it was to have someone I could relate to, and someone that gets.
That's totally. I can totally relate, because my fiance is also in a wheelchair, and before him, I was like, I'm only gonna date able-bodied, like.
Yep.
And then I only dated able-bodied for like 2 years, and they were all assholes. And like, then I met Devon, and I was like, we just clicked instantly, you know.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't like. I almost didn't talk to him because I'm like, he has a disability. Like, I don't want to do this. But like, it totally worked out, man. Like,
Yeah, okay, that's great. How long have you been engaged?
it'll be we moved really fast. It'll be we'll be engaged a year this month.
Okay, congratulations.
Like really soon. But no, we've been together almost 2 years, so we knew like right off the bat, like,
Yeah,
there ain't no waiting, like we know.
we've been engaged for a year and a half.
Yeah,
Together for 11. So
that's awesome. So what is? Let me think of some other questions. Have you talking about your, like, all this stuff? Have you experienced any like backlash for like being so open about sexuality as a person with this?
I thought I would. Like I said, I was raised in a very conservative home, so I thought I would, but my family and my friends are very supportive. And really, I just really come at it as I'm not saying go out and screw everybody.
You're doing it in a very respectful way. Like you're not like shoving your sexuality like in people's faces, like all of your Instagram. Like you're doing it in a very like respectful way. In my
opinion. I just want their disability to be seen as more sex positive.
Yes.
And whatever people decide to do with that, that's up to them. I just want to make sure they're getting the information that they need to make a educated and choice that is their own and not somebody else's.
Yes, and I believe that being more educated or versed in your sexuality leads to you gaining more confidence. Do you think that's?
Oh, I started, I guess, really quarantine's what made me really more open about it. I mean, I just got certified last October, and I started queer romance in April this year. So I can see a huge difference in my overall confidence. And I think that once you know what sexuality is for yourself, that just, you feel like you have a control over your life. You have control over your body and what you want done with it and what you want to do, and that opens so many doors to empowerment.
Exactly. That's a good word to use. You feel empowered. Like that's a very good word.
I feel like people, asexuality is a form of sexuality. Yeah. And if someone wants to be asexual, they have the right to be asexual, and they have the right not to be asexual.
And I think you brought up a good point earlier on when it comes to sexuality and people with disabilities. It's not all about like the physical, like actually like the physical intercourse or whatever, however you want to put it. It's not all about that. So I think that's a good thing to bring up for other people with disabilities who might like get in their head a little bit, you know what I mean? Like it's not. Yeah. That's not the be all end all. Like it's so much more than just the physical part.
Yeah, one thing I really wish people would take away from whatever I teach, whatever I do, is sex can be whatever you want it to be. So if that does not involve an intercourse or penetration, great. If it does, great. But whatever works for you and your ability.
Yeah, and whatever works for you and your partner or just yourself. Like there needs to be an open line of communication of them.
Yes.
Exactly. So at the end of every episode, I ask my guests if they have any advice for other people that are like going through similar situations. So do you have any advice for people who might be watching?
Just go with it. Find what works for you. I am gonna say there's nothing wrong with masturbation.
Yep.
Finding what works for you, and let sex be what it needs to be, or what you want it to be for you. There's no right or wrong answer.
Well, that's good. That's good advice. Izzie, where can people follow you on social media?
Let me look it up. So I'm most active on Instagram. So you can follow me at Izzie Bullock. So it's IZZIE, B as in boy, ULLOCK. You can always message me on there if you're interested in pure romance or anything like that. I'm always open for a conversation, or if you just need some advice, my inbox is always open.
Awesome. So I will put her information in the description below, so people can follow you. And thank you, Izzie, for being on Spastic Chatter. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And for those watching, there's always a link to. There's always a link in the description if you wanted to be a guest on Spastic Chatter. And check back next week for another episode. Thanks. Bye.